started to add to it. Over here, what you see over here is the so-called small camp. The first edition came in 1938. Later on there came more editions. For example, the special camp was set up a little bit later. And then you can see other compounds around here that all belong to the concentration camp, but actually were not prison camps. What you see over here, for example, is a huge SS training site. Sachsenhausen turned out to be not only one of the bigger concentration camps, but also the center of the whole camp network. So the organization of the whole camp network was done actually from this building here, the T-shaped building they called the Inspectorate. The person responsible for everything was called the Inspector, lived in that little house over there, later than 16, and this whole compound was the SS training center. Most of the guards and officers that manned the other concentration camps were actually trained here. For example, the guy who was later on the commander of the Auschwitz concentration camp was an officer in training here in Sachsenhausen. And these compounds over there are also part of the logistics. What's level number 18 is the main SS vehicle depot. This is one of the, actually these both 17 and 19, those compounds here were just arsenals. That's where they stored their gear. In the corner there, you have an SS communications unit. One exception is that what's labeled over there, I think 20. You can see this one big building. This is the so-called brickwork. Sachsenhausen was a forced labor camp, unlike Auschwitz, for example, which existed primarily to murder people. Sachsenhausen was a forced labor camp, which doesn't say that the conditions were any good. People died here by the tens of thousands, but a little bit better than in Auschwitz, which isn't saying much, obviously. The work was going on for one in this compound over here. This is the so-called industrial yard, so there were workshops. There was one large workshop over here, and then the prisoners very often were working in factories somewhere outside of the camp. For example, this one over there, and on occasions the SS actually set up sort of smaller sub-camps next to those factories, and they were all over the place. They were as far away as Berlin, even though they're not on the model, obviously, otherwise they would have to be too big. But the one over there, you can see that the brickworks was a factory that manufactured bricks, one of the worst places to work in here. The conditions were absolutely horrible. And to the side of that, you can see this tiny little square compound, with guard towers at the corner. That is one of the top camps. And as I said, there were quite a few of them all over the area here, but not here on the camp. Sachsenhausen was, by the way, predominantly a men's camp. There was a women's concentration camp of Ravensbrück, another 100 kilometers north of here, which was, if I remember correctly, also officially a sub-camp of Sachsenhausen, but large enough really to be a camp of its own right. I think they had about 25,000, 30,000 prisoners, while the maximum number of prisoners in Sachsenhausen at one point was more than 50,000 prisoners. What we'll see today isn't actually very much. A lot of this stuff here does not exist anymore. The SS training site to some extent still exists. I'll explain what this is all about. What we'll essentially do is that we'll go through the wall here. We will walk down the so-called camp access road, make a left-hand turn, and come back into the administration area, and there we'll find a place in the shade, and I'll give you a run-through through the history of this particular concentration camp. Then we'll enter the concentration camp through this building. This is the main guard tower. It has a big gate in it called the Tower A. It was the first guard tower, hence the first tower that the prisoners saw, the tower through which the prisoners entered the camp. We'll have a stop here on the roll call square, explain a little bit of that. We'll go to the small camp. We see those two barracks that still exist. The rest are for the most part gone, but these two are still here. Oh, actually, restored version. I'll explain that later. We see how prisoners had to stay. We can see the reconstructed interior of the barrack. We'll see this wing of a formerly T-shaped building that was the so-called cell block, a camp prison inside a prison camp, which is a bit strange, and I'll explain why there was a special prison inside this. We'll see these two buildings here. This is the former laundry, and this is the former kitchen building. The kitchen building today houses the main exhibition in here. There are a couple of exhibitions that I always give you a little bit of time to go through. You won't have enough time to look at them thoroughly. We can spare something like 15 minutes for every exhibition. You can just pick a few things to get a basic idea. If you want to take a closer look, you can, of course, feel free to stay here after the tour. You can stay here and take a look at them a bit longer if you still have the energy for that. I won't have, so I'll be leaving. So you have to find your own back to the train station there. But of course, feel free to do that if you are interested and want to see a little bit more than what we can do on the tour. Then we'll then see, after we've went into the kitchen building, we'll go to this compound over here. This is this used to be the so-called station in Zed. This was a murder site. Sachsenhausen, while officially being predominantly being a forced labor camp, this was actually also a place where people were murdered specifically brought here to be murdered. Not just people who died here because the conditions were so bad, but who were actually brought here to be murdered. And they were murdered in here. I'll explain, the foundations of the stations that are left. I'll explain a little bit what that was. We'll see what's left of the industrial yard. Then we'll go back into the actual prison part of the camp. We'll follow the course of the wall. We'll see these two barracks, and here we have this is the infirmary. There's another exhibition there. There is this building over here which still exists, the pathology lab, at least some of it still exists. And then at around 3 o'clock we'll leave the camp memorial through the metal gate that you can see a little bit further down next to that guard tower over there. The plan is then to take off home, not home, but to the train station, and then take the S-Bahn. We just have to see time-wise if we get hold of it at one point, we might have to walk back. We'll see how we can manage. Okay. Good. Then we'll go